This right here is the MSI MAG272CRX. Monitor names, man, I'm telling you, they are the worst. This is a 240Hz display, only 1080p, which is a bit disappointing, but that kind of balances out the fact that this is a high refresh rate panel as well. It is slightly curved at 1500R, so it will engulf you just a bit. Never understood that trend for TVs, but for gaming monitors, since you're typically the only one viewing the monitor, it works out just fine. And get this, it's not a TN display, which is interesting. I think it's a good thing because I personally prefer VA or IPS over TN. The only upside to TN is that you really don't see much ghosting at all. Twisted Dematic is great for high refresh rate panels, and that's why most of them on the market are TN panels in this 240Hz territory. This one, however, is VA, vertical alignment. It's similar to IPS in ways. We have a video talking about it, but we want to see just how good VA technology is at such a high resolution. There are issues that you have to overcome. We'll talk about those in this video. Stay with me. If you're upset about that inconsiderate Windows activation watermark plaguing your screen, snag an OEM license. SCD Key makes it simple. You have one in a few seconds for a little over $10, then click here, 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 and then here, paste your activation key, and you can kiss that watermark goodbye. And be sure to use my new offer code GSL for a 12% discount on your order. Let's jump straight into the details. The 272 features two HDMI 2.0B ports and one DisplayPort 1.2A port. Whew. And all three of them will support 1080p at 240Hz, which is pretty cool. You'll also find a USB Type-C port and two USB 3 ports down here, along with a pass-through from your PC. So these are good for extra peripherals and the like. The power input resides on the other side, and thankfully the AC adapter is integrated, so no annoying bricks to manage. There's a dedicated power button with LED, pretty self-explanatory, as well as an OSD toggle. It's the only button you'll need for navigating menus, and it's great. I really wish other monitors would follow suit. No more misclicking or guessing. It's a pretty seamless menu as well. The monitor requires only a Phillips screwdriver for assembly and is supported by this fixed leg stand. Setup takes only a few seconds. My one gripe, the lack of swivel support. There isn't a built-in pivot point, so you'll need to physically move the legs if you want the monitor facing somewhere else. Luckily, we do have tilt adjustment from -5 to 20 degrees and 130 millimeters of height adjustment. Why'd they say 130 millimeters? Just say 13 centimeters. What's the difference? The screen itself is fitted with an anti-glare coating and manages to replicate colors fairly well for a VA panel. 113% of the sRGB spectrum here, as well as 89% of DCI-P3. Actually pretty darn good for a VA panel. Contrast ratios are on par for a VA panel, but you won't find anywhere near the depth of OLED screens, obviously, when it comes to truly black scenes. In fact, in the case of this particular monitor, backlight bleed is rather apparent, something IPS lovers have likely dealt with from time to time. It's a noteworthy trade-off. This is definitely exaggerated on camera, I just want to stress that, but it's still worth noting. You'll probably see it in the dark. Also, while referencing Passmark's monitor calibration test, I noticed a partially dead pixel. Green appears to be completely out, hence the black only showing up with a green background. When a white background is displayed, the pixel appears darker due to its lack of a green shade at full brightness. In terms of ghosting, however, this is where things can get especially dicey, and it's going to be subjective to an extent. For quite a while now, most affordable 240Hz panels have been the twisted pneumatic type. Even cheap ones like this Acer Predator, actually this is a pretty good price for a TN 240Hz panel, are just that, TN panels. Great for high refresh rates and ghosting, but generally terrible for color reproduction. A trade-off there as well is price. Reds may look a bit pink, blues may look a bit gray, viewing angles are generally trash. Not that it should matter for most. VA technology, though, fixes most of these issues in exchange for a slightly worse ghosting effect, at least in most cases, and that's simply because it takes longer for liquid crystals to rotate a full 90 degrees than it does for them to untwist in a TN display. I tried to replicate this here. You can see the effect in action in the 272. There's a brief blur behind each of these UFOs, and that's the result of crystals not turning quick enough to block the backlight behind. On this 240Hz TN panel from BenQ, ghosting is almost non-existent though. I filmed these shots at 120 frames per second to smooth things out a bit, but of course YouTube's gonna do whatever YouTube does. Hopefully you can see the difference. It's noticeable even at full speed to the naked eye, assuming you know what to look for. In fact, small tangent, this is why a majority of esports teams have remained with TN panels despite this obvious disadvantage. When playing something like CSGO, for example, contrast ratios and ghosting trump color, hands down, ask my wife. But for those of us non-CSGO pros, I don't imagine it'll bother many. Some may not even notice, unless, of course, they watch this video. I should point out that there is an anti-blur option in the OSD, but the only difference I noticed was a darker display. The length of the blur behind the UFOs didn't appear to change, which was somewhat disappointing. Maybe the camera will pick up a difference. So what we're left with then is a panel that manages to produce some fairly vibrant colors with FreeSync support baked in, an ultra high refresh rate, and a small degree of ghosting for roughly $350 USD, so around a $100 markup just for VA technology. When I put it that way, it doesn't seem like a great deal, but trust me, if you're used to anything that's not TN, going back to TN is not something that you're gonna be pretty excited about. So maybe the $100 difference is worth it to you. It's honestly not that bad from my perspective. Response time is snappy, HDR is handy, and heck, you even get a sliver of RGB on the back if that's your thing. I can tell MSI tried to gear this ever so slightly toward the esports market. However, I don't think VA has a place in competitive first-person shooter arenas. So it's kind of a mixed bag. This is like a hybrid panel that I'm not even sure what its target audience is. I guess for you and me, us non-pro gamers, it's a pretty good combo, but I'm sure some will disagree. So my final verdict on the MAG272CRX is this. It is a panel worth considering. I'm not gonna tell you to go out and buy it right now because there are certainly competitors that tend to do pretty well, especially in the TN category. You know, despite being TN technology, they've kind of gotten around the weird color distortions and things from sharp viewing angles and such. And that's typically one of the large trade-offs with TN is that the color accuracy is pretty trash. But like I said, a lot of TN panels are getting pretty good. And obviously it's hard to go back to TN if you're already on VA or IPS, let's be honest. But those are pretty cheap as well. The Asus Predator model here is under $300. That's for a 240 Hz TN panel. You might want to check that one out as well. But this one here is more for the gamer that prioritizes looks over just the smooth aspects of the monitor and is not afraid to spend a bit more on something that, again, just reproduces color significantly better than TN, not quite as good as IPS, but you also get great contrast ratios with VA compared to IPS in most cases. So again, there are trade-offs all across the board with gaming monitors. This one though, at $350 or so US dollars, is worth considering. If it was above 400 USD, I'd say there are better options out there for your money. But again, under 400 bucks, yeah, check it out, see what you like. If you find one of these on display somewhere, I encourage you to kind of just dive through some settings, run some tests if it has internet connection, whatever computer's hooked up to it. Run some tests like I showed you in this video here. I'll link the website down below if you want to check it out. I use it for pretty much all of my monitor reviews, and it's because it can tell you a lot about the monitor in question, how good the panel is, and what to expect when you're gaming. If you guys like this video, click the thumbs up button. I do appreciate that. Consider clicking the subscribe button as well, and stay tuned for more content, including CES 2020 content, which is coming up shortly after this video airs. My name's Greg. Thanks for learning with me.